My name is Brenda Brown. I'm 32 years old. And the night everything ended began with the smell of garlic and burnt hope. The kitchen was warm, alive, with the hiss of olive oil and the slow, rhythmic stirring of sauce. I'd made pasta arrabbiata, Paul's favorite. I'd told myself it would help break the ice after a week of tension thick enough to choke on. Paul had been distant lately, curt texts, late nights, the occasional sigh that said more than words ever could. I thought maybe a home-cooked dinner might thaw him out. It used to work before his silences started feeling like walls. The lock clicked. The sound made my stomach twist. He walked in handsome, sharp suit tie, loosened eyes, already half checked out of the room. "Smells strong," he said flatly, tossing his keys on the counter. "It's arrabbiata," I replied, forcing a lightness I didn't feel. "Your favorite, remember." He didn't answer, just opened the fridge and pulled out a bottle of red wine. He poured himself a glass, no offer for me, and leaned against the counter, watching the sauce bubble. I tried again. "Rough day." "They're all rough days," he said. "You wouldn't get it. You just sit at a desk all day pushing pixels. My work actually deals with people real problems." The jab landed like a paper cut small, but it stung. "I was trying to do something nice," I said quietly. "I even booked us that table at the Oak for Saturday. You love that place." His expression flickered, then hardened. "Saturday." He took a long sip. "Didn't I tell you Sam's throwing that party Saturday night?" "You mentioned it, but I thought..." "Well, think harder next time he cut in. Cancel it." I stared at him, spoon frozen in midair. "You could just say thank you, you know." He looked up, then the look of someone itching for a fight. "God, why is everything such a problem with you, Brenda? You never listen." I set the spoon down. "I do listen, Paul. Maybe too much. I just never get heard." He laughed, sharp and humorless. "You're so dramatic. You make everything about feelings. Maybe if you focused on being interesting once in a while." "Interesting," I repeated. "You mean unpredictable, chaotic, like you." That hit him, his jaw clenched. "You're so safe, so predictable. You're like beige paint. You never surprise me." The words sank in slowly like poison. I took a breath, steady and cold. "You want surprises? Okay, here's when I'm done apologizing for being the one who keeps things stable while you play emotional roulette." He stared, blinking, not used to resistance. "You know what the real problem is," he said, voice dropping low. "You're boring, even in bed." "Ava." My stomach turned to ice. "What about Ava?" He smirked. "She was passionate, wild, better than you'll ever be." The air left my body. The world around me blurred, the sizzling sauce, the ticking clock, his lips still moving like a distant echo. Every shared laugh, every touch, all rewritten in that moment as a lie. I didn't scream, didn't throw the glass, didn't beg. I just turned off the stove, wiped my hands on a towel, and walked past him. "Where are you going?" he asked. "To remember who I was before you decided to break her," I said softly. I closed the bedroom door behind me. That night I didn't cry. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring into the dark, feeling something colder and clearer than sadness. Freedom. A terrifying, empty kind of freedom, but freedom nonetheless. When dawn came, I realized I'd already made my decision. I wasn't staying. Not another fight. Not another apology for being too calm or too boring. The game was over. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt awake. The morning after felt eerily calm, the kind of quiet that comes after a storm has ripped through, leaving only the wreckage behind. Paul's alarm went off at 7 a.m. I was already awake, sitting by the window with a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. The city was stirring outside, and I watched it through the glass, like someone looking at a world they no longer belonged to. He emerged from the bedroom, freshly showered, towel around his neck, acting as if nothing had happened. The smell of his cologne filled the space like an unwelcome ghost. "You're up early," he said casually. "Lots to do," I replied, my voice flat, uninviting. He hovered in the doorway, probably expecting the usual routine, the conversation, the tears, the forgiveness. But I wasn't playing that script anymore. "About last night," he began, rubbing the back of his neck. "You know how you get sometimes," and I turned to look at him. Whatever he saw in my face stopped him mid-sentence. My expression was cold, distant, the look of someone who had already left, just not physically. "We can talk later," I said quietly. He frowned, confused, but didn't push. "Whatever. I'll be late." And just like that, he was gone. The moment the front door clicked shut, I exhaled a long, quiet breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for years. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was clean. I stood up, walked to the closet, and pulled out my old suitcase. I began to pack. Not in a rush, not in panic. It was ritualistic, deliberate. Clothes, documents, laptop, toothbrush. I left behind everything sentimental, the frame photos, the stupid decorative vase he insisted on buying, the overpriced throw blanket that had couple goals embroidered on the corner. The only personal thing I took was my grandmother's leather journal, small, worn, filled with words that once reminded me who I was. When I was done, I stood in the living room and looked around. The apartment felt like a crime scene. The half-empty wine glass, the burned sauce in the pan, the echo of last night's words still hanging in the air. I took my key off the keychain and placed it beside the wine glass. That was my goodbye. No note, no message. He didn't deserve an explanation. He'd only twist into a new accusation. Then I picked up my bags and walked out. Outside, the morning light hit my face, cool, sharp, and oddly cleansing. Every step away from that building felt like reclaiming oxygen. By noon, I'd signed the short-term lease for a small studio across town. Neutral walls, minimal furniture, no memories, no ghosts. It wasn't home yet, but it was mine. That first night, the silence pressed in on me. But it wasn't suffocating. It was pure. It hummed like a blank canvas waiting to be filled. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't scroll through old photos. I just lay in bed and let myself feel everything. The ache, the relief, the strange stillness of starting over. The next few days blurred together in quiet routines. Work, coffee, long walks, the gym. No Paul, no drama, just space. On the 7th day, I came home to a voicemail. The number was unfamiliar, but I knew that voice instantly. Seriously, Brenda. You're just going to run away. That's so pathetic. You left your stupid notebook on the shelf and your good winter coat. I'm not your storage unit. Call me back so we can talk like adults. I listened once, then deleted it. No anger, no tears, just a small, dry laugh. He still thought he had control. He didn't understand that silence was the loudest answer he'd ever get from me. That night, I opened my grandmother's journal and wrote one line. Freedom doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it just feels like breathing again. And for the first time in years, I fell asleep without waiting for the sound of a key turning in the door. 3 weeks passed before I heard from him again. By then, I'd started to reclaim a rhythm. My new apartment smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and coffee instead of his cologne. The walls were bare, but the quiet was warm. I ran before sunrise. I worked. I read. I learned how to fill silence without fear. Then one afternoon, my phone pinged a new email. The subject line stopped me cold. We need to talk, Brenda. I'm worried about you. My chest tightened, but only for a second. I opened it already expecting the performance. This is really immature, running away and blocking me. It's extreme. My therapist says people who do this are projecting childhood trauma. I'm not angry. I'm concerned. We shared a life for years. We at least deserve a conversation. It was textbook Paul, manipulative concern, wrapped in self-righteousness. He wasn't worried. He was offended that his audience had left. I hit delete. Then I made a filter so anything from him went straight to trash. No more ghosts. That weekend, I met my old friend Dana for coffee the first time we'd seen each other in months. She was loud, unfiltered, and everything I'd forgotten I missed. She listened quietly as I told her what happened. When I was done, she exhaled a long, low whistle. Girl, he's lucky you didn't dump a pot of pasta over his head. I laughed for the first time in what felt like forever. Tempting. He's probably already moved on, Dana said, rolling her eyes. Guys like that don't sit in regret. They just find another ego boost. Yeah, I said, stirring my coffee. Her name was Ava. Dana's brow furrowed. Wait, was his ex, I explained. The one he compared me to. I'm sure he's already crawling back to her. Dana reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Then let him. He'll just poison another person. I smiled, but inside her words hit deeper than she realized. Because she was right. Paul was poison charming, convincing, lethal in small doses. That night, I blocked him everywhere, phone, email, even the joint streaming account we used to share. It felt final. I thought that was the end of it. But ghosts never stay buried, do they? A few weeks later, Dana texted me late one night. Dana. Hey, random question. Did Paul ever date a girl named Ava again? Me, probably. Why Dana? Because Ava just tagged him on Instagram. Some fancy rooftop dinner. Caption said, "Round 2. Maybe this time we'll get it right." I stared at the message for a long time, my heart utterly still. It didn't hurt. Not really. It just felt predictable. Good luck to her, I typed back. The next morning, I deleted all my social media accounts. Not to hide, to disappear from his orbit entirely. Weeks passed. I learned to play guitar badly. I burned a few dinners. I started sleeping again. Then one evening, while meal prepping chicken and vegetables, my phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. Brenda, I know you're getting these. Ava and it's over. She cheated. With my friend Sam. I should have listened to you. You were the only real thing I had. Please, can we just talk? I miss you. I stared at the words until the screen dimmed. Not I'm sorry, not I was wrong, just I miss you. Paul wasn't reaching out to make amends, he was reaching for the person he used to drain. I didn't reply. Instead, I texted Dana. Guess who finally got cheated on by Ava? Oh, the irony, she replied. Did you answer no? Silence says everything. I put my phone face down and finished cooking. Later that night, while the city hummed outside my window, I picked up my grandmother's journal again and wrote, When the ghosts come knocking, don't open the door. They only want to drag you back to the fire you escaped. And for the first time, I believed it. 3 months later, life felt steady again, maybe even good. I'd stopped counting the days since Paul. The ache that once sat heavy in my chest had dulled to a quiet scar. I'd found a rhythm that belonged only to me, early runs by the River Black, coffee-long playlists that didn't remind me of anyone. And then there was Noah. We'd met at a bookstore when we both reached for the same novel. He smiled, offered it to me, and we ended up talking for an hour between dusty shelves. He wasn't flashy like Paul, he didn't perform his charm. He just existed calmly fully. After a few weeks of slow, careful dinners and long walks, I realized something startling. I could laugh again, really laugh, without checking someone else's reaction first. So when my phone buzzed during our Friday dinner at the small tapas bar on 8th Street, I barely looked at it. Someone's popular, Noah teased. Probably spam, I said, flipping it face down. He smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. Spam can wait. Tell me more about Lisbon. I laughed and leaned in, talking about my dream of visiting Portugal one day. For 2 hours, I forgot the world outside our little table. But later, as I walked up to my apartment, the unease hit me. My phone was buzzing again repeatedly. I unlocked it. 7 messages, all from an unknown number, and I knew. Instantly. I opened the first one. Brenda, please don't ignore me. I don't know if this is still your number. Another. I'm sorry for everything I said. I didn't mean it. I was angry and stupid. And another. You were the best thing in my life. The only real thing. I see that now. My fingers hovered above the screen, frozen. Then, Ava's gone. She left. She said she couldn't handle it. I'm a mess, Brenda. I can't do this alone. She's pregnant. My vision tunneled. He kept going, message after message, desperation bleeding through the words. She told me after I lost everything. And then she blocked me. I don't know what to do. I can't sleep. I keep thinking about how peaceful you were, how safe. You were my calm. Please, Brenda, I have no one else. I sat down on the edge of my bed, staring at the screen. The same man who once mocked me for being boring now craved the stability he'd shattered. The same safe, predictable love he'd sneered at was suddenly the lifeline he wanted back. But this time I didn't feel anger, or satisfaction, or anything close to pity. Just detachment. He had chosen the storm. He had glorified the chaos. And now he was drowning in the flood he created. I didn't reply, not a single word. Instead, I deleted every message, then blocked the number. I poured myself a glass of water and sat by the window. The city outside was soft, with light rain, the kind that makes everything shimmer. Peace, that was the word that came to mind. Not revenge, not closure, just peace. I whispered it aloud, letting the words settle into the room. Peace. Later, when I crawled into bed, I realized something quietly profound. Paul was still running from consequences, still looking for someone to save him. But I had stopped running altogether. And maybe that was the real difference between us. It happened on a gray Tuesday morning, one of those quiet, uneventful days that feels harmless until it suddenly isn't. The gym parking lot was almost empty. I was halfway through my usual post-run stretch when I saw him, leaning against my car. Paul. He looked smaller somehow, thinner. The arrogance that used to fill every inch of his body had deflated into something frail and uncertain. He was wearing my old winter coat, the one he once said made me look like a librarian. The irony was cruel enough to make me laugh if I hadn't been so tired of the story. He straightened when he saw me. Brenda. His voice cracked on my name. I stopped a few feet away. You shouldn't be here. I didn't know where else to go. His hands were shoved deep in the coat pockets, his eyes darting everywhere but mine. You got my text right. I did. He nodded, swallowing hard. Then, Ava's gone. She left. She's keeping the baby, but she wants nothing to do with me. He let out a hollow laugh. Guess passion doesn't pay the bills after all. I said nothing. He took a step closer, desperation sharpening his tone. You once said you'd always be there for me, remember? You said no matter what happened, you'd never walk away. That was a promise I made to someone who doesn't exist anymore, I said quietly. You killed that version of yourself. He blinked. So what? You're just going to abandon me. You, of all people, you don't abandon people. I'm not abandoning you, Paul. I kept my voice calm even. I left you months ago. You just refused to notice. His face twisted, the guilt morphing into anger. You think you're so much better than me now, don't you? You and your perfect little peaceful life. You're still the same, boring, predictable. Careful, I said. My voice was soft, but it landed like a strike. You've run out of power to hurt me. He froze. The silence between us stretched heavy and uncomfortable. For a moment, I saw it, the flash of realization behind his eyes. The understanding that I truly meant it. That he couldn't pull me back in this time. His lip trembled. I'm lost, Brenda. I know, I said, and I hope you find your way, but not through me. He flinched like the words had weight. When I unlocked my car, he stepped aside automatically. His shoulders slumped, his breath fogging in the cold air. You really feel nothing, do you? He asked quietly. I paused, hand on the car door. No, not anymore. And that was the truth, the saddest and most freeing truth of all. Because love hadn't turned to hate, it had simply evaporated. He stood there rooted in place as I got in and started the engine. Through the windshield, he looked smaller still, a shadow of the man who once thought he was untouchable. As I pulled away, I caught one last glimpse of him in the rearview mirror, standing alone in the empty parking lot, the wind tugging at my old coat, his face a mix of regret and disbelief. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel sorrow. I just felt done, truly, completely done. And that nothingness, that clean, still silence, was worth more than any revenge could ever give. 2 months passed before his name appeared again, not on my phone, but in a text from Sam, a mutual acquaintance I hadn't spoken to in almost a year. Hey, just ran into Ava at the grocery store. She had the baby, a little boy. Paul's living back with his parents. It's messy. I stared at the message, waiting for some kind of reaction, anger, pity, satisfaction, anything. But there was only stillness. I typed back. Thanks for letting me know. Hope they're both okay. And I meant it in the most detached human way possible. I set the phone aside and went back to chopping vegetables for dinner. Noah was coming over soon. He arrived 10 minutes later, bringing that quiet calm that had become my new favorite sound. No tension, no walking on eggshells, no guessing what mood I was coming home to. Just simple, steady peace. We ate on the balcony, the night air soft, the city humming below. Noah poured me a glass of wine and smiled. You've been quiet tonight. Just thinking, I said. About him. I hesitated for a second. But it's strange. It's like thinking about a character in a story I read once. I remember the plot, but I don't feel anything about it anymore. He nodded, thoughtful. That's what healing sounds like. We clinked glasses. I smiled because it was true. After he left that night, I tidied up the table, washed the dishes, and opened my grandmother's leather journal, the same one I'd taken the day I left Paul. On the first page months ago, I had written, freedom doesn't always feel like victory, sometimes it just feels like breathing again. Tonight I added another line beneath it. Peace isn't boring, it's freedom. I set the pen down and leaned back in my chair, looking around the apartment. My guitar rested against the wall. A hiking brochure Noah had brought over sat on the coffee table. A candle flickered quietly by the window, the scent of cedar and clean air. This space was no longer just a place to escape to. It was mine, every inch of it, shaped by choices that were finally my own. I thought about Paul, about how he had traded stability for excitement, devotion for chaos, about how he'd once sneered at my calm life, only to end up begging for it back. He'd gotten his storm, and I had found my stillness. I wasn't the woman who begged to be understood anymore. I wasn't the one who stayed and explained and waited for change that would never come. I was the woman who walked away and never looked back. The city outside was silent, the kind of silence that hums like a lullaby instead of a wound. I closed the journal, turned off the light, and whispered into the dark. Not to Paul. Not to anyone, just to myself. This is what peace feels like. And in that moment, I knew the story was over.